Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing Cloud Warrior, written by Patrick Tilley. It's book 1 in the Amtrak Wars series. It's a sci-fi series. It's dystopian as well, so the world is set in about the year 3000 after a nuclear war. It's also got elements of fantasy in there as well. It's got some action and some war scenes in there as well, and a bit of romance tucked in there as well in the piece. It's got quite a lot of elements, themes going on in this book, but it's blended together quite well, and I found this a really enjoyable read. I'm really looking forward to reading the whole series. This book is a sci-fi epic, and some elements remind me of Star Wars, just a few things in there as well, and I'll explain that further on in the next section on plot. This book is set around the year 3000, and almost 1,000 years ago there was a nuclear devastation. I don't know if it was a war. You get hints that it would have been a war, and it was a war caused by United States of America, according to some of the hints in the book, in the first book anyway. So the world's being devastated by all these blasts. A group of people went underground, and over the last almost 1,000 years, they've created this huge society underground. So the first group of people we meet are the Amtrak Federation, and they live underground in huge city-like structures, and there's about 9 or 10 of them, I think, at the time of this book. They're very technologically advanced, and they put a lot of faith in their tech, and they have more faith in their tech than they do in their own people. And their people are almost threatened to act in a certain way and do certain things for the betterment of all the people in their group, in their society. And they're very hierarchical. So we have leaders, and those leaders seem to be not elected. It seems to be aristocracy in a way. So from the first leaders of this new society underground, every leader after that, I think is just a descendant of the first leader. And everybody else in the society are children from the DNA of the first leader. And they're bred in labs. So it's a very interesting society, very interesting makeup of the society. And the way it's explained and brought about, I think, is quite wonderful as well. And we learn bits and pieces and more, not just from their first introduction, but we also learn more and more throughout the book, when one of our main characters, Steve Brickman, leaves the safety of his home underground and joins a wagon train. And he protects the wagon train because he's a wingman, but we'll get into that more later. The other group of people described in this world are called mutes, and they live above ground. They're nomadic tribesmen, hunter-gatherers, and that's how they're explored and explained in this book. You get a sense they're almost based on first Americans. That's how I felt about it anyway. Their society is also very big on kinship and family and those connections, so it's vastly different to how the society underground is constructed. So I found those differences very intriguing in this book. Also in this society, they have a secret, and that secret is that a few of them are magical. They're summoners, and they can control different things at different times, and different summoners have different strengths. Apparently there's 9 levels of summoning that they connect with. Most people can get to around 6 or 7. 7 is very high, very rare. But nobody has got 9 levels. And the person to get 9 levels will be their saviour, who's written in their prophecy. At least the prophecy of the main group that we meet in this book, called Clan McCall. The third group is only described very briefly. We don't know a lot about them in this book, and I suspect we'll get to know more about them in future books in the series. I'm looking forward to that, because what we've learnt so far in book 1 is that they're some sort of engineering society. They're very good at creating things, crafting things, and I want to get to know more about them because they seem to create weapons as well. I want to see how that plays out with the 3 groups in this world. With that brief description of the 3 groups in the world, mainly the 2 groups we meet in more detail in this book, let's focus on the 3 main characters, or the 4 main characters that we meet in this book. One of the main characters is Steve Brickman, and we meet him first. And as I mentioned just before, he's from the Amtrak Federation Underground. He's training to be a wingman, and he just graduates as a wingman. And their role is to accompany these things called road trains, and they're basically above ground vehicles, very long, like 600 meters or something in length, and they act like human transport, good transport. They've also got enough space to hold these flying vehicles that they have, and so they're quite large. They're very well armoured as well, and they've got a lot of weaponry, a lot of protection in them as well, and a lot of cameras around them, so you can see the high tech in the society. So his role is to protect that road train as it travels from an underground home base to another base. The other three main characters in this book are all mutes, living above ground in Clan McCall. First we have Cadillac. Now Cadillac is a young person in the tribe. I think he's late teenagers in this book. He's a trainee wordsmith. He's also a seer, and he hopes to be a summoner because he wants to have all three skills. Because if you have all three skills, you're the chosen one, the person who's prophesized to save their clan. A wordsmith in their society is somebody who remembers things very well and also has an ancestral memory. And it's almost a photographic memory as well for seeing things and hearing things. Because other people in the tribe, their memories aren't that great. They can't remember things, and sometimes they do remember them, but they lose a connection between what they remember and how they speak about that memory or think about that memory. So it's quite unusual ways described. But we have these rare wordsmiths that always remember things, and they're the ones that are constantly reminding other people in the clan of what things are and how to do things. So Cadillac is training for that. Mr. Snow is the current wordsmith, and he's also a summoner. And he's a very powerful summoner. He can summon to level 7 out of 9. And there's a few things in this book where he shows his powers, and they're great scenes. I won't give those things away, but he's a great character, and I really like Mr. Snow. The third main character in Clan McCall is called Clearwater. Clearwater is a young woman, late teenage years I think as well. She and Cadillac are promised to marry each other. Clearwater is a trainee summoner. She's not as powerful as Mr. Snow. I think she can summon up to level 2 or 3 of things in this book. And what they do when they're summoning is basically summoning things to do with nature and sometimes over mind as well. So it's quite interesting what they can do. And I like those aspects of this novel. Even though it's a sci-fi novel, I do like the fantasy aspects coming in as well. Without giving too much away about the overall plot, I'll just mention the main plot aspects, the main reason for this book. So as I mentioned before, Steve Brickman is a wingman, and he's protecting this road train. Also on their mission, they're being told they're going to try to find mutes, and they're going to try to confront these mutes and kill them, because the Amtrak Federation wants to take back more and more territory above ground, because they think they're getting closer to being able to go above ground and live above ground and survive. So as they're doing that, there's quite a big battle. Steve Brickman ends up being captured by the McCall clan, and the really key thing about this book is how he deals with that. McCall clan take him in, they heal his wounds, they care for him, feed him, they almost adopt him into their society. That's very interesting, and as the book goes on, Steve Brickman realises that he sees different things in the mutes than what he's taught, because in their society they're taught that all mutes are dangerous, that they should just kill all mutes. All mutes are useless, they're dumb, they're dangerous, they destroy the world. That's what they're taught to believe below ground. And Steve Brickman's kind of getting a different view of the mutes, and it's very confronting for him and very confusing. So a lot of this novel is about how he deals with that and how he interacts with the mutes. And what's he going to do? Is he going to try to escape and take information back below ground to help the Amtrak Federation? What's he going to do? Is he going to become friends with the mutes? We're not sure as we go through this book, and I won't give anything else away, but that whole journey of Steve Brickman is very interesting. And it's not just his journey, because Cadillac and Mr. Snow and Clearwater also have their own journey and growth going on as they get to know more about Steve. So it's very interesting for the McCall clan, the mutes, and also for Steve Brickman, who's part of the Amtrak Federation. What is this going to cause them to do? How's it going to cause them to act in future books in the series as their characters grow and their stories develop? I find that very intriguing and interesting and very engaging, and it makes me want to read more and more in this series. I'll mention Steve Brickman first, because at the start of the book we're immersed in the Amtrak Federation world, so we meet him first. He's very cocky, very arrogant, and he's also very cold. He's very emotionless, and he's quite proud of that fact, and they're trained to be that way. Especially the wingmen and the people in the military part of the society. They're trained to be very cold, very emotionless, think almost clinically, and they're trained to hate the mutes. They're trained to kill every mute on sight, unless those mutes pay them tribute. There are certain mute clans very close to where their bases were who pay them tribute, and they do that in order to be protected, not be killed. But they're basically giving tribute to be slaves. So the Amtrak Federation is taught that the mutes are dangerous, they're only useful as slaves, but never to trust them. And his character growth is very interesting, because he's a character that's very easy to dislike. But as time goes on in this book, you wonder if, can he be likable? Can he change a bit? And you're wondering if that's happening. And in certain ways, it may. And I enjoy that growth in this character. And I've got a feeling that he's going to have more growth as the series goes on, and I'm very interested to see what that growth is. Mr. Snow is my favourite character in this book, and as I said before, he's the elder, the mystic, the wordsmith and the wise one in Clan McCall. He reminds me of Yoda from Star Wars. He has these really great wise sayings, and he's got that power. He can summon things. So it's almost like the Force sometimes. That's how it's described in the book, almost like the Force from Star Wars. But I like his character because he's also got a quirky sense of humour. And I like the way he interacts with other characters. I like the way he interacts with Steve when Steve's there. You know, he gives him a hard time sometimes, but you can see the humour behind it. And I do like that he's so complex in his personality. He feels so real and so lifelike. And he just feels like this old guy that's really there to lead people, to train people and support them, and it's a very interesting character, and he stands out very much in his world because there's no one else like him. Cadillac, Mr. Snow's apprentice, he's also interesting for different reasons. He's got a lot of flaws, and those flaws just make him seem real, make him seem his age in the book, and I like that. I like the fact that in this book the characters act their age. They don't try to act older than they are, so they're not written as being older and wiser than their years. And that's a really good sign of great character development and great character growth and construction in this book. I like the fact that also he's growing in the book, even in book one. And it makes me really keen to see what's going to happen for Cadillac in future books. Because on one side, he seems a bit centered and he seems to enjoy, embracing wisdom and learning more wisdom. But on the other side, he seems a bit impatient, a bit impetuous, and he wants to be the chosen one, the center of attention, and he doesn't want to be anybody else. So you're just wondering which side of the coin is going to take over in his personality as the series goes on. And I find that very interesting, and I'm very keen to find out what really happens in this series. Cloud Warrior, the first book in the Amtrak Wars series, is a really great read, and I don't think I showed the cover before, but here's the cover. I found this book so fascinating, and I want to read all this series. There's 6 books in the series, and I'm reading it alongside other series, so it will take a bit of time to get through them all, but I'm just loving the series from book 1, and it makes me really keen to read all the books, and I've got a feeling that each book is going to be really great. I rate this a 4 out of 5. I just think that Patrick Tilley created a great world in this book. It's so vivid and so well described and developed. It feels real. So even though it's dystopian and the whole world's destroyed, it just feels real. Everything about it. And the characters are so well done as well. And it feels so well plotted as well. Everything feels deliberate. As I read through this series, I will put a book review up on my channel. If you don't want to miss out on those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a sci-fi playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.